For the record, I would like to state that I am a full-on fan of Duncan and Courtney. Now, with that out of the way, I wanted to make a video about Duncan and Heather after stumbling upon a couple of clips from World Tour when Heather was trying to flirt with Duncan to make Alejandro jealous. It then got me thinking about all the other times throughout Total Drama that these two have either flirted with each other or romantically manipulated the other. It all starts in the very first episode when Duncan immediately flirts with Heather after arriving on the show. Heather is super quick to shut him down and clearly has zero interest in him, but this doesn't stop him. He continues to tease her once again and later requests to have the bunk bed underneath her, which only annoys her even further. This whole thing is interesting to me because while pretty much every major couple this season is teased in this first episode, Gwen and Trent, Jeff and Bridget, Tyler and Lindsay, even Lashana and Harold, Duncan and Courtney are not. Duncan is instead flirting the whole time with Heather, and later also rolls his eyes at Lindsay falling for a jock like Tyler. In Wawanakwa Gone Wild, Duncan and Heather work together for the first time in a mutually beneficial one-time alliance. Now, while Duncan saw this situation as a win-win for him, Heather was able to manipulate him into cleaning the communal bathroom instead of her because of this alliance. She was tranquilized, but she later feigned her condition to keep him at the dirty work. Duncan also calls Heather hot in the confessional in Camp Castaways, but he does also say that she's insane, annoying, and untrustworthy. But this leads into the episode after when the final four are split into two teams for the Invincibility Challenge. Heather again manipulates Duncan by playing on his flirtiness as she cuddles up to him for the night. Little did Duncan realize that this was all a plan for Heather to steal Duncan and Owen's supplies and secure the win for her and Gwen, thus eliminating Duncan. And that's just the first season. Obviously, Duncan and Courtney had already kind of begun dating like halfway through the season, but it still is interesting to me that there are these moments between Duncan and Heather that highlight both Duncan's attraction to her and Heather's ability to manipulate him because of that, and also her just utter disgust for him. Total Drama action is when they're both on the same team for once, although they don't really go through these same kind of incidents. Instead, they go through things like in Riot on the Set, Heather calls Duncan pretty boy when she tells him to stop being a prima donna about his role. Now, he took serious exception to being called pretty, but he was cool with Gwen calling him every synonym for attractive. Anyways, Heather later cries alongside Lashana and Chef due to how good Duncan's acting was. She was moved by the pretty boy after all. The Same Witch Project has another small moment between them where they are instructed to kiss for one of the challenges. It's the last thing either of them want to do, but they do so anyways with the lightest peck on the lips ever, and it's still enough to utterly disgust them. Like, Duncan is actually gagging from that while Heather remarks that he tastes like the street. Another moment worth mentioning is in Masters of Disasters when everyone is trapped inside the submarines and the water level keeps rising. Heather holds on to Duncan when she doesn't know what else to do to save them, but she immediately recognizes what she's doing, so she lets go out of disgust and splashes Duncan. Notice the entire time though that Duncan is smirking and clearly is cool with this if they end up drowning in the submarine together. No, slick Duncan, I see you. But that's kinda it for their interactions in this way on Total Drama Action. There's obviously some more that goes on between them that also involves the likes of Lashana and Harold, but strictly between these two, these moments are kinda important in contextualizing what exactly their relationship was. It seems like after the first season, and with his growing attraction to Gwen this season, Duncan kinda lost interest in Heather and was actually kinda grossed out by her. But the feeling was mutual as Heather had that kind of feeling from the very beginning. As for World Tour, this attitude from Duncan continues while Heather ends up trying to go back to what worked for her in Total Drama Island. After Alejandro and Duncan devise their plan and Alejandro flirts a bunch with Courtney, Heather wants to get back at him. So she decides to flirt with Duncan several times. This never actually works on him as he's more so just bewildered at what she's doing, but this does actually somehow manage to work on Alejandro and on Gwen too. Duncan just believes Heather is plotting to kill him and is just completely confused at her passes, which is hilarious. This continues into the next episode when Heather tries to hug Duncan, but Duncan wants nothing to do with her whatsoever. This leads to them fighting, and that was the last of that plan of Heather's. It was also the last time they ever had any interaction that had some sort of flirtation or romance involved. Now, the reason that I outline all of these moments from the first 3 seasons is to take a look at how their relationship changed throughout these seasons and whether or not they'd actually somehow make a good pair. I mean, I think the clear answer to that is no, but there are people out there who do like this pairing. I think it's clear that Duncan was attracted to Heather for a while until he eventually wasn't, but it wasn't until World Tour when he was just fully disgusted. For Heather, she never liked him, but she knew how Duncan felt and used that to her advantage. They both have a lot of hatred in their hearts, and I feel like that just makes them even less compatible for each other. I just can't see it ever really happening, but I think they could be cordial with one another. They were able to form some temporary alliances with each other, but it's clear the two really do hate each other. Maybe in another world they'd realize the potential they'd have by working really close with each other for a prolonged time, but with each of their circumstances in the first 3 seasons, that's not something that would have ever worked out. They're both villains, but Heather is much more of a schemer than Duncan is. Duncan even pointed this out when Heather was quick to kick Lindsay to the curb. Heather tried pointing out Duncan as a hypocrite, but Duncan rebutted with the fact that he is just straight up with people. So, do I think Duncan and Heather could work as a couple? I have to say no, but I do still find it interesting that there's all these types of moments that they have with each other, especially just in the first episode. It feels like they were setting something up a lot bigger for them, but maybe this was just foreshadowing for when Heather easily manipulates Duncan. Who knows really, but this was still something fun for me to think about and talk about, as these are two of my favorite characters from the show, and I think their interactions with each other are equal parts fascinating and hilarious. Let me know down below what you think of these two, and also let me know what else you'd like to see me talk about on this channel. Like the video, subscribe for more videos, and yeah, thank you for watching.